Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Happy Bringling. Once again, we are there on our 21 days business sustainability challenge. We at Bringle team, along with Vardhan, Solveworks, Women Lines, and Poonam Foundation, would like to welcome each of our speakers today, the participants on the Zoom call, and the people who are watching it live on our YouTube channel, Bringle Talks.
A very good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to whole global community there. It's such a pleasure to welcome you all and welcome the experts today.
Typically, there's a definition of the word disruption popularized primarily by Singularity University. So, which basically says that disruption, there are three things. It usually never comes from the domain that you are in. Second, it would always make your existing skill sets or your existing resources useless. And the third is that it usually is not just the product, or it's not just a single feature. It's actually the whole package of it and the way the product hits the market.
I've seen a lot of disruptive technologies in IT. We can go from the basics, which is a virtual machine, a developer puts software on it. That's a traditional way. Then it's physical. It's in a data center. It's expensive. It costs power, air conditioning. And now we come to a stage where everything is serverless, which means you don't manage anything. You just put it in the cloud and it goes and works. Now that's disruptive.
Yeah, so I think the age-old question of saying, do you want to build or buy, right? I think this whole passion of saying, I want to build exactly what I want, but you could take your credit card and buy it in an hour. So what Anil just said, I had a very interesting discussion with a friend who ran networks, and they were moving offices, and I said, so you're moving infrastructure with it? He said, no, whenever I want, I'll spawn up a new VDI machine. I have a credit card and I have a phone, and that's what I need. If I want to add 1,100 new machines, it's going to take me 1 minute.
So firstly, because of this COVID, a lot of supply chains have broken down, some beyond repair. So it's like a new normal being set. So, just some time back, I was talking with a startup from my circles, and he was saying that, I think in 3 months, we'll come back and, things will get normal. So my point was that in these 3 months, we will have developed certain habits which have already taken us away from the offline model and have made us comfortable with the online model.
Manufacturing is going to be one of the biggest users of disruptive technologies. For example, whether it is machine learning or data analytics or artificial intelligence, and then all this built into what we call factory automation. So if you see today, a lot of countries due to COVID have already started talking about moving out of China. Everybody went to China because of what? Cheap labor and material.
So technically, a lot of ideas, as you say, it's probably true for most of the South Asian market. Is most are already successful models being copied and then implemented, right? So Nepal is no different to that. So a lot of things that started here, starting right from digital payments to e-commerce, were a part of it. Like when Rocket Internet, focused on maybe developing nations for the e-commerce thing, when large e-commerce were being established in developed nations. I think Nepal was one of their pilot project wherein they started as KMU and then later sold it to Alibaba now. So they're doing pretty good here. So technically speaking, the startup scene over here has been vibrant so far, until this the crisis came up. And so there were some activities of investments going lately, not the typical VC kind of investment that happens in larger markets like India, but yeah, relatively smaller one, but there have been some incredible investment. And touching upon another part, the cybersecurity, I think that's been a huge issue over here. And that is something, a lot of tech firms, and maybe it is an opportunity for some new entrepreneurs to enter into that area. And maybe that is something where disruptive technologies can happen next. Because as we often tend to define disruptive technology in our own ways, I think we need to go back to the history and find where this term particularly originated. So I was curious enough to look back, and I think it was Professor Clayton from Harvard who coined this term called disruptive innovation, wherein he was trying to tell about how disruption takes place and what are the criteria to define a particular innovation as a disruptive innovation or a disruptive technology. Now moving on, when we come maybe around 20 25 years later, the term, I guess, has been a victim of its own success, because it is often misunderstood to something that changes everything. But that was not the original meaning of the term, because as far as I know, because there were two areas where Professor Clayton focused on when he talked about disruptive innovation or disruptive technology happening. So one was the low end foothold market, wherein the most of the incumbent players would not want to focus on. So if I was to connect to the existing cybersecurity scenario over here, large cybersecurity firms had been focusing on bigger players, say banks, insurance, because those are the more profitable sectors.